Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Tales from a Professional Nerd. My name is Bryan C.P. Steele, and I will be your nerd today and every other day that you watch my channel or other things that I'm in, or stalk me on Facebook, or pay attention to my Twitter or my Instagram or whatever. Regardless, I'll be your professional nerd. That's what I'm here for. So today is a strange day. It's a different kind of day. We are celebrating. Today I want to celebrate freelancing. I want to just basically really sort of, we've got one more episode before the end of the month. And the contest about that I had said I'm going to give away some stuff and let someone pick a cool topic for us to discuss. And I'm getting a couple of decent ones in, but there needs to be more. Comment, share, subscribe. But what I really want to do is, aside from the normal everyday, take a look at the week in Bryan, discuss some things, but really kind of show off that it's been a good week for Freelancing Bryan. I especially some of my earlier videos, there was a lot of doom and gloom. There was a lot of, I don't get to sleep. I'm full of deadlines. Things are too crazy for words. I want to take a moment to point out that occasionally freelancing is amazing, that it's awesome, that being on retainer with companies is fantastic, and that there are times where everything seems to be coming together, even if real life is still throwing you some messed up situations, that things are still awesome in their own way. And that's what my job. That's really kind of what I do today. What I want to do today is I want to discuss the fact that it's been a good week for Bryan and Bryan the freelancer, and I might not be able to get into too many details about a couple of things, but I can at least discuss with you guys how cool things have been, and that if you do want to be a freelancer, that it isn't always 120% go and you're pinching your pennies at every possible opportunity, and that it isn't always the thrift part of the spendthrift. It's that it isn't always waiting for your next contract to come through because you're eating ramen. Sometimes things are going well, and I really just kind of wanted to take today to kind of highlight that things are going well, and that sometimes the life of a freelancer is a good life, is a good and a good and happy life. And I'm there. I'm in that spot. We'll talk about the week in Bryan. The first and foremost, the elephant in the room is Bryan, for the first time ever in my entire adult life, let someone who is not a haircutting professional cut my hair. This whole quarantine, not getting able to go anywhere, and I'm not going to go see a barber or a regular hairdresser or something, because I'm not going to risk my family getting this illness over the fact that I was getting real shaggy. So I looked at my wife, I looked at Natalie, and she's been poking me for a while to really embrace this inner Viking thing going on, and she's like, let's give you a mohawk, and I said, all right, cool. And this happens for two reasons. I've done this before in like high school ages ago. You can find some old pictures of me with a faux hawk in some cases. I think there might be still one good picture of me with like a bright blue mohawk in my Facebook somewhere, hidden deep down in the dive. But so it's not the first time I've done weird things with my hair. I haven't colored it yet, and I don't know if I'm going to. Might just leave it as the normal color. But I will say this, that part of the reason was because I was getting shaggy. I looked awful, and I felt like I needed something new to be done, and this was fun and neat, and I can do fun things with it. It also, it showed, so my son Connor was also looking pretty shaggy. He inherited his grandfather's hair on his mother's side, which is very thick and very curly when it starts to grow out. And it started to get really kind of puffy headed. He was looking a little goofy, but obviously, his mother and her boyfriend and me and Natalie, we weren't going to subject Connor to go out and possibly get him sick by going to have him get a haircut. So, we wanted to figure out a way to get him a haircut. So Natalie took all week learning, basically watching YouTube videos and watching Twitch streams and things like that of people doing haircuts, of how to give a boy a haircut, and in an effort to not only solve my problem of looking like a shaggy monster, but also to kind of point out to him that Natalie knew what she was doing. I did this first so he would feel better about sitting in the chair and letting Natalie cut his hair. Which she did, and it looked great. She did a great job. She was super worried about it. She was super worried that his mom was going to be mad, that that she was going to mess it up, that she was like ding him or something, and get a tough patch or whatever. But so she took a bunch of pictures, and she actually sent it to her hairdresser friend and was like, "How'd I do?" And it turned out great. So big thumbs up, and I feel a lot less paranoid about having my wife cut my hair in the future, saving me $20 every couple months. So that was a big change in the old household. Let's see what else. Last week we did the weekend Necron. The hobby Necron day. I've got my second webcam back and up and running, so I'll be able to do another hobby rig day where you get to see both of us at the same time, the material being worked on and me, because that's important. I don't know, but hopefully here pretty soon we'll have some cool new stuff to work on. I have been told from a client that he is sending me another piece from Kingdom Death Monster that might be fun to work on. I don't know how photogenic the model will be. If you are aware about the Kingdom Death Monster line, it has some indiscretions in it, some strange mutations on some of the models that might be a little interesting for the kiddies to see if they're watching me paint. I also know that in theory, here relatively soon, I should have some of the first prototype Warzone models from our new line, from Resnova's new Warzone. Absolutely pre-production. These are test models for us to decide if we like how they look and the scale and everything. So regardless of any of that, when those come in, I will probably do a Warzone-based hobby day where I sit over there and talk shop and get these guys painted and show off how cool this stuff's going to be, which I'm super excited about. I'm jazzed to no end. Not to mention, not only jazzed because of getting of that process moving forward and getting able to talk a little bit more about what's going on, but also jazzed because earlier this week I managed to I got through a hiccup in the Warzone rules design process. which we'll talk a little bit more about the things that happened that made this a great freelance week after I get through the week in Bryan, which I guess it's the same thing, but you know how it is. I'm trying to stick with a concept, I'm trying to stay with an idea. Let's see what else. The week in Bryan, I got we have what, 2 days? 2 days? 2 days before the big Necron info drop. In theory, it might not even just be Necrons at this point. There's a lot of things pointing to it. It could be a larger Warhammer 40,000 update or something. Again, they're keeping things pretty close to the chest as far as what is actually being talked about, what is actually going to be coming out on the 23rd, or what's being told to us on the 23rd. So I'm super excited about that. I know I was excited about it last week, but I'm even more so now, having seen they released a little fiction blurb starring some Necrons doing decidedly not Necron things. Basically Necrons that look like they were like flayed ones, which flayed ones are Edward Scissorhands looking Necrons that wear like skin and flesh to almost like Terminator-esque look, like they can, hang out with people at a glance. You might not notice that they're Necrons until they, come out and start killing people. Except in the story, these flayed ones, which is the first time that we'd ever seen that, they talked. They like mimicked the people that they had killed and were wearing. They mimicked them, and in one part they actually had guns, and flayed ones don't have guns in the current rule set. So it was cool. It was a neat little fiction blurb. It gave us just enough to kind of whet our appetite. I've done a little more painting on the Seraptech. Not a lot of painting on the Seraptech, just for the sheer fact that I kind of got sucked into trying to get its base done and worked on. So I've really kind of focused on the base first, which just seems so weird. But I kind of got wrapped up in the idea of having a really cool base that this thing sits on, a very stable, heavy, thing. I don't know. Call me weird. Let's see, what else? I have rekindled my love for Fallout 76 on the Xbox One, partially due to one of my close friends who has been sadly distant for a while because he joined the Navy. He and his wife decided to get back into Fallout 76. And because of that, I'm spending a lot more time, on there and helping out and finding all these cool new things. If you've ever played that game, or if you are, if you've ever been skeptical because you've heard the thing that it sucks. It's not as good as the other Fallouts or whatever. It is a lot of fun, especially if you play with your friends. And the new updates have added all kinds of really cool stuff. And so I've spent many hours after my work hours running around the Fallout wastelands of Appalachia, and now helping my friends kind of get their stuff off the ground and whatnot. And I've uncovered a couple of cool plots that I uncovered an entire base, like an actual compound that I didn't even know was a thing in the game. I totally stumbled upon it by accident. I showed my son, who plays Fallout. I showed one of my best friends. Hey, this is a thing now, and it's amazing. Again, the game is beautiful, and it's a lot of fun if you put it in kind of the right mindset. But I've been doing a lot more of that lately. And if you are on Xbox One, and you are ever playing Fallout 76 and you see Bryan CP Steele, that's right. Or actually, I don't think my CP is on there. I just think this thing is just Bryan Steele. My Xbox handle is old enough because I was one of the first Xbox junkies. Is I don't have any numbers or letters or numbers or any signifiers in my name. I'm just Bryan Steele. That's my gamer handle. Is my own name. It's so silly. But if you ever see Bryan Steele running around the wasteland, send me a message. Send me a team request or whatever, and maybe we'll run around the wasteland together for a little bit. Let's see what else. Working steadily on the new Shadowrun novel. It's coming along. I had a couple of days there where things were not coming along very quickly. I wouldn't call it writer's block. I would call it, writer's block seems like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, or I've hit this wall and I don't know where I'm going from here. It was more along the lines of the scenes were not coming off of my fingers as fast as they could. And that's just I think it's a matter of, did I get enough sleep? Am I well fed? I think that's almost just an environment sort of situation rather than a mental thing. I reached out to a company to ask them a few questions about one of their properties. And they sent me the we'll hold on to this and we'll talk to you, we'll get back to you in the future. So who knows about that. Before I go on, yes, I guess I'm still working on the Weekend Bryan. This weekend I've got the first real role-playing session of the World of Chaldea with Peter Atkinson. I am jazzed about that. I've been working on my accent to hopefully make it come together during the game, unless it is distracting, and then I won't use it. But I've done a decent amount of research. My character is a kind of backwoods noble with high elven fey blood in him. So he's almost more elf than man, but he is still human. When it comes to the actual, he is a human. He is not an elf, but he's got a lot of those elven traits about him, and there's like that little bit of mysticism in his blood that sets him apart from regular folk. So I've done a lot of research about weird Gaelic and Celtic Fey-isms that character will abide by, specifically the first time walking through a gate, walking through a Widdershins, which is walking through backwards. The avoidance of any kind of like cold wrought iron. If the nails in an archway or a doorway are held together, or if a doorway or an archway is held together by cold iron nails, I will try my best to find a different way into the establishment. Just little weird things like that. Stuff that leaving food and treats and sweets and cream and berries and things like that, leaving that stuff out for my forefathers and my spirits, that whether or not they're actually gonna be there watching over me, I have no idea. But these are the things that the character has grown up doing in order to sate the needs of the Olachet. And I'm super jazzed. It's gonna be a fun game, and on top of that, it's actually gonna be with a game system that I'm only vaguely familiar with. I only recently kind of dipped my toes in it, called Burning Wheel. That is, at first glance, seemingly a lot of fun. We spent the whole first session. It's called burning a character. It's like, basically you build a character up from childhood through their life paths to where they are today as a character, and you get them all their stats and their characteristics and all these sorts of things. And so that was super fun, just to build that whole thing together. And since it is a It is a very story-driven game. You want all the players kind of on the same, not necessarily the same side, but at least in the same focus of pushing the story forward. So that way, there's not always one person dragging their heels and fighting against the rest. There's going to be conflict. There's going to be arguments. There's going to be debate. That happens, but it's not going to be. You're not going to have, oh, I'm the betrayer. I'm the one that is gonna screw over the party at first opportunity. Like that's probably not going to happen in a Burning Wheel game. So we all made our characters together, and everybody knows like the plot and the storylines basically behind each other. Even though you might not be friends yet, you at least from a narrative aspect, you know who these people are. You know who they are, and you know who they are going to be in the story at large. So that's pretty cool. So we get to play that for the first time tomorrow. Again, I don't know if Peter is going to record it or if we're going to be allowed to record it. I know he said he was okay with us talking about it. And kind of expressing and like spreading the word about it. But again, I don't know if he's going to actually be releasing it or if it's just something he's doing to help pass the time while all of us are stuck inside and not able to play all of our reindeer games. Sorry about that. Totally weird technical snafu. I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but my camera freaked out and my whole system went smush. So now that we're back up and running again, I'm not sure exactly where I was. We were talking about the Warzone figure. Hopefully the prototype will be done. That I earlier this week I was talking about Chaldea, and that tomorrow I get to play that game for the very first time. Really play. And then the day after that, not only do we have the awesome Warhammer 40k news, but I get to run that postponed session from the Arcane Promise, which will get recorded and released on the channel later next week. It's been a really good week, a very solid week. Got some painting done, got some business done, and before I move into the further reasons why it's been a good week in freelancing and why sometimes being a professional nerd and a freelancer is better than others, and this week qualifies, I'm going to let you in on a little superstition that Bryan has. So one of the things that I almost continue talking in the third person. One of the things that I have done when I was very early on as a writer with Privateer Press is when we put out a new product, when I got to add a new something to my bibliography, my curriculum vitae, if you will, I would take what part of that money, whatever that money was, and I would buy myself something that is grown up and celebratory, whether it was a tattoo or if it was a new set of business cards or a placard for the wall or whatever, whatever the case may be, something that younger Bryan would not necessarily view as a great expenditure of money, but something that's a reminder of the forward progression. Well, as years moved on, obviously some of that was, well, I need to buy a new thing for my computer, or I need to buy this new fancy version of a game that I already own, or something like that. Like I always talked myself into something to celebrate a publication. But as the publications started to get closer and closer together, especially during the Mongoose years where I was putting out a book every other month, um, those celebrations were farther and fewer between. It just kind of became, it sort of became, I'm just spending my money on myself. So what ended up happening is I had a short story published through Lauren Bukes. The author of an amazing author through she did Moxieland. Was it Zoo? Was it the Zoo People? And there's something else relatively recently that's just it's been doing really, really well. She's an amazing author, and she chose one of my short stories to publish as part of one of her releases. My short story was based in her Moxieland world, which is an awesome book. If you have not read Moxieland by Lauren Bukes, do yourself a favor and do it. It's fantastic. Especially if you're into kind of dystopic future kind of things. But when that short story got published, I took that entire check and I went and blew it on a fancy bottle of scotch. And that has kind of become the new tradition, the new superstition for Bryan, is rather than every single time I put a publication out, or every single time that I publish anything, I go buy some scotch, because otherwise I'd have a hell of a liquor cabinet. Is I go, and anytime that I like sell a board game whole cloth, or in the case of a couple of times now, if I've sold a novel, when I get the actual signing bonus for that novel, is I go and buy myself a nice fancy bottle of scotch. And earlier this week, my signing bonus, or my signing wages for the Shadowrun novel that I'm working on right now, came through, and so I am here with you, my lovely viewers, going to open for the very first time this brand new bottle of Lefroy. I love it to death. This is one of my favorite scotches. There are a couple of others that there's a Belvany that I really love. There's another, but pretty much anything that is any of the Islas. It's spelled Islay, but any of the Islas, I am a big Isla junkie. And this one is a quarter cask. A quarter cask from 1815 is when it says when it was established as a distillery. Actually, I don't know if it's got the actual yearage on here for the. Because under normal circumstances, this one's roughly the same as the 15. Here we go. Gonna have a good listen. Oh, it smells like wonderful. All right, so we're going to toast. That's enough for me. I don't want to go crazy. I still have work to do and editing for this video and things. And there's more video. Also, I don't waste my scotch. I don't just drink it to be drinking it. It is for special, fantastic occasions. And this week we are going to say it has been a great week in freelancing. I'm very glad that I have reconnected with my Catalyst Game Labs friends about this novel work and potentially more, in possibly even other avenues other licenses and things that they carry. Either way, I love writing fiction, and the fact that I get to dive into a section of the Shadowrun world that has not really been fleshed out aside from some game knowledge, some game stuff here and there. I'm really excited, and so I'm raising a glass. I'm not toasting myself. I am toasting the process. A novel has begun, and eventually it will be done, and everyone will be able to read it and hopefully enjoy it. And so here's to that. Here's to the process, and here's to another story being told, and hopefully a story being enjoyed. Oh, I love it so much. All right, so now that we've had the toast out of the way, talking about my little writer superstition, let me tell you a couple of reasons why this week has been such a good week for Freelancer. So, not only did I earlier this week, not only have I just making good headway on the Shadowrun novel, I hit a soft wall, a soft bubble on the Warzone rules. The section that I'm working on right now, not to give anything away, but I've started to work on the different features that terrain will have on the board. For anybody out there who's not a wargamer, not that most of you understand how this works, a lot of wargaming is not two-dimensional. It's not just on like a hex grid or something like that. It's actually on a 3D map that's got pieces of terrain that you build or you buy or both. And in a game like Warzone or 40K or Dark Age or Dust or anything like that, these pieces of terrain, they are not only just obstacles to get around, they're oftentimes tactical. You can make tactical advantage out of them. Like if it's a row of barbed wire, we'll say, it might not stop a bullet, but that it might stop a charge from some bad guy that's coming in. So if you've got guys that are not so great in close combat, you can hide them behind that barbed wire, and then hopefully, if the guys come through, maybe they'll take some damage or some penalties or something as that comes through. And there's always in every game there's specific rules. Any game that uses terrain, there's always going to be specific rules based on the terrain pieces themselves. In some games, they are as easy as, is it terrain that'll stop a bullet or stop an arrow or whatever? Yes, then this gives you hard cover. If not, it gives you soft cover. Done. And that's your rules. Sometimes it's, is it an area of terrain? It's like, is it a section of trees, or is it a single tree? Does this game use true line of sight? Like I get down by where the little model's eyeballs are, and can I see the model itself? Does it use figurative line of sight, where I draw a line between the two models, and if that line crosses the terrain, then the terrain is in the way? There's all kinds of different ways to make that work. And with our new Warzone rules, I want terrain, both Alex and I keep saying I, but it's not just me, and I don't, it's not like I'm the voice of Warzone or anything like that. That's not the case. Everything I do goes through Alex, and we hammer it out. We make it work for the game that we've decided what we want this to come together. But initially it's kind of working around in my skull, and so I'm trying to figure out how to make a particular aspect of terrain work. And part of that reason is, part of that function has to do with the sheer size of the terrain pieces. And anybody who has ever played any of the old school like Necromunda or Mordheim games from Games Workshop that were small numbered games, had lots of people going up and down ladders and in third, fourth, fifth, sixth floors, things like that. Altitude of terrain was very important, and in those games it was mostly important just for like measuring ranges and can I jump from this one to this one? What happens if I fall? That sort of thing. In Warzone, we know that eventually the game, maybe not initially, but eventually we're going to get creatures and vehicles that are probably bigger than some of the terrain that you're using. So if you're hiding behind a shipping crate, like you've got this shipping crate and your dude's hiding behind there, like, I'm taking up, getting ready to start popping shots off at somebody, and then just on the other side of the crate, up stomps the Algorothian Biogiant, which is, for the people who don't play Warzone, effectively a gigantic undead Frankenstein's monster with a gun for like a gun chainsaw thing for an arm. Not that bright, but it's the size of a small, like it's like a semi turned on its end, made of flesh and dark magic. And so this thing comes stomping up to the other side of the other side of the container. What I was running into is I was trying to come up with a way to make that container give cover to one side, but without completely ignoring physics. At first there was no good way for me to create a decent line of sight between the two models that made sense and kept real world physics into play, but also taking into consideration that these are, in the narrative of the game, not static figures. The Biogiant is not just standing like a gingerbread man. He should be able to lean over and take shots on the other side or whatever. And so that's I was running into how to, in all honesty, how to deal with the size of terrain, and how that would affect line of sight, and how that would affect being able to crawl over it or take cover behind it, that sort of thing. And then earlier this week, a combination of something that Alex had said in a previous email and something that popped up in one of my little internal playtests, that it dawned on me, and I was like, that's going to work perfect, and it scales beautifully. It scales to someone hiding behind a mailbox all the way up to, like mid-level skyscraper, if you had somebody that big, able to deal with that. So I'm very happy with that was a hiccup that I ran into that I just couldn't figure out how to get around mathematically without adding in a certain bit of just hand wave. And so from a designer standpoint, sometimes you have to have a little bit of a hand wavium, which is just do it because the game needs the balance, or just do it because the rule says so. But as a more storyline based designer, I don't like using hand wavium. I do not like using the do it because the rules say so. I want you to do it because the rules say so, and that makes sense. And that's the big thing right now, is, as Alex and I are hammering out and discussing the kind of the final outlays of this weapon for close combat should be able to strike a couple of inches further away because it's a spear and not a sword or not a dagger or whatever. This pistol should totally be able to use in close combat because there's a dude right there. If I've got a pistol, I should be able to plug him in the belly. There's little things like that we have, we discuss back and forth, and it comes together real easy because it makes sense. And a lot of special rules will sometimes spring out of those conversations. And for me as a designer, I'm totally fine with a game being very rules heavy. I like it if that's the feel of the game. If it's a kind of game that is not so rules heavy, like it's supposed to play a little faster, it's okay to have a lot of special rules, but try not to have a ton of rules that refer to other rules, or rules that include 4 other rules. You want to be able to look at something, know what it does. Even if it is a unique rule, I want it to be easy and it listed right there, and bam, I know what it does. If that rule is absolutely unique to one model in the game, that's fine, but it still needs to play well with others. It still needs to be, if 5 years down the road we decide to make another model that uses the same rule, it needs to be worded correctly for another unit to use it. It needs to be worded in a way that you don't have to alter how it functions, but in order for it to work for this new thing, because that is hands down one of my least favorite things when designing a game or when reading through a game's rules, is if you find the same rule or the same term that means different things for different models. No way. I don't want that. I want, if someone's like, all right, I've got the Impaler, which is an assault rifle. If I've got the M50 Impaler, which I think is the M50, if I've got the M50 Impaler, then I know the stats for the M50 Impaler for anybody who has it. Anybody who has the M50 Impaler, they have the same stats for the M50 Impaler. They might have a different skill level with it. They might be a better shot. Maybe they might have, they might have a special rule that lets them use it slightly differently. But the actual piece of equipment is the same from one person to the next. If you've got the Punisher short sword, guess what? That is the same for every single person who has the Punisher short sword. If it's going to be different, it'll be a different piece of equipment, and it'll have different stats and a different name. Even if it was something, again, this is not really the case, but like, if you hit the Punisher short sword, and then there's another guy later on who has like a better version of the Punisher short sword, maybe he'll have like the Punisher 2. But that's super doubtful, because again, the idea is to make this easy, is to make it, and I don't want to use the term easy as in like, it's going to be tiny for tiny kids. No, easy as in, I don't want your game to come screeching to a halt because you don't know which assault rifle you're carrying. Or I don't want your game to come screeching to a halt because there's an ability listed on your character, on your model, that you don't know what it does. And so you got to sit there and, oh, hang on, we got to flip through the book to find it. My goal is to make your pieces and rules easy to use and easy to remember, and more importantly, easy to compare to one another. Because a lot of times there's a lot of games that, like, when someone will go, oh, well, I've got this rule and I've got this rule, and they diametrically opposed. So you've got to come up with an order of resolution. Which model's going to take precedence? Which rule? And I know there are some games out there that say just roll a die and whoever's die is highest, that's the precedent set for this game. That is bonkers. Random resolution should be the absolute last thing that you ever do. Random resolution should be only used when you literally have no stake in, I just need to know which one of these 4 models something is attacking. Or, I need a number between 1 and 10. Roll a die. Give me that number. It should not be for a rules interpretation, or am I in range or am I not in range? The absolutely last straw should be a random die resolution to set precedence for a game. And if, in my personal opinion, if you are going to use a random die roll to set precedence for the game, it should set precedence for the whole game, not just that one instance. Because as soon as the one player gets the benefit or the drawback from that, the rest of that game should know how it's going to go. So they can plan around it, they can strategize, they can use, if they know that, oh, no, because that's the way the die fell, in this game, close combat with a teddy bear gives you stealth or whatever. Again, I'm being goofy and figurative, but as you don't want it the next time that situation comes up, that suddenly, oh, the die roll went the other way, and now the other player is suddenly against it because that's how the dice fell. Bam! Down with random die roll resolution when it comes to rules. It is better to just have your rules worded more precisely, or as concisely as they can be, and have an order of preference when it comes to rules, an order, like a priority order, that this rule supersedes this rule, supersedes this rule, and that way, barring some really weird, happenstance situation, whose rules take precedence in any given particular situation, and without having to reach for dice to be like, let's find out if that works. Blah. So there we go. There's that for that. I went off on a little tangent there for a second. Oh yeah, we were talking about how I burst through a terrain based obstacle for no pun intended, for Warzone. So Warzone's coming along nice. I'm hoping that I'll have some models to show you here relatively soon, some prototype models. And as time moves forward, hopefully I'll be able to start sharing some actual like rules interactions and some future plans. That way, some of you Warzone players out there can really start to kind of get a feel for where, almost like a designer's diary, where you guys can get a feel for what we're doing and why, as the game moves forward toward our initial actually like official launch press release stuff. Let's see. Not a great thing for a freelancer this week, but it is still good news to know and have it known, is Gen Con Indy was canceled. I think it's still going to have a digital, an online element. There's going to be a lot of people playing games. There's going to be a lot of people hopefully participating in the Gen Can't idea of, whatever you were going to try and sell at the show, put it online, add a discount, whatever, get out there, get a share of that money. Because again, these gamers, their badges and whatnot that are already purchased are going to get pushed forward to 2021, but a lot of gamers save up all year round for spending at Gen Con. And I think that if done properly and done correctly, that it can be a very cool, it could be a really cool way to show our support of Gen Con, is by buying Gen Con 2020 merch, going to the stores that you were going to go to at the show in the dealer's hall and buy stuff from their online album, or their online catalog. And in the notes, because they always give you an opportunity to write a note or special thing or email them or whatever, is you email them and say, hey, this was going to be one of my 2020 purchases at Gen Con. Thank you for making it available for, even though the show wasn't, happy, we'll see you next year. That kind of thing. We still want to keep that camaraderie going. We want to keep the fact that, it is the best 4 days in gaming, and this year we're missing out. And I won't lie, it sucks. There's a ton of people that I only see at conventions that I'm not going to get to see at all until like mid next year. Facebook and stuff, but it's not the same. Not to mention there's gaming events that people want to host. There's things that I would like to have seen previews for that now we're less likely unless that company decides to put out an actual like preview thing on their website. Which is, frankly, harder than just having stuff there at the show. And more costly if you don't have a web designer, if you don't have an IT guy who could put together a really cool, check out our splash page, you might run into an issue where that they're not going to get enough exposure on that new product. And so that's kind of where I'm at. Is I'm hoping that everybody kind of joins in as gamerhood, and instead of gnashing their teeth and be like, Gen Con's closed, is go, oh man, Gen Con's closed, what can I do to help make sure that 2021 is a success? What can I do to help keep the coffers full and moving forward, and still make people realize that there is going to be a reason for us to get together in 2021 because without Gen Con in 2020, there's going to be a lot of people that are like, I haven't played in X games or whatever for a year. Like I want, if I had my druthers, 2020 Gen Con would end up being this giant, and you can call me a commercialist if you want, this giant commercial, everybody and their brother has a Gen Cant 2020 online discount code for like 10% off or free shipping or whatever, and just we pour all of these like millions of dollars that we normally spend at Gen Con in the local restaurants, ordering food, ordering gift cards. That's a big thing too, is if you know, and I say this, I mean this in all honesty, is a lot of those downtown restaurants, a lot of those shops that are right or not in Gen Con themselves, the ones surrounding downtown, they live and die by some of these larger conventions that come in. They make tons of money. Is call them up and find out if you can order a gift card, and use it next year. You use it next year, or use it at a local version of a chain or whatever. But that way you are still kind of helping out. You're still helping out the local economy. You're still pointing out to the city of Indianapolis, hey, it sucks that Gen Con got canceled, but we got your back. And that's stuff that I think that I do think that it'll go a long way. I think that people will recognize if, as gamers, we come together and say, they can take Gen Con away from us. This virus can take Gen Con away from us for good reason, but it's not going to take away our ability to enjoy ourselves and still purchase cool stuff and make cool decisions and see neat things. I'm very, call me blissfully optimistic. I want to say that we can make a Gen Cant 2020 or a hole in the structure of convention season and turn it into something really, really cool. So that was something that happened earlier this week. Let's see what else. I know I got a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah. I finally got my. I haven't used them yet. I am part of the beta test for Stuart Simple's Whitest White. So I've mentioned Blackest Black and Pinkest Pink and Lit, and the goldiest gold that ever golded. Stuart Semple is a amazing art entrepreneur. I believe he's an artist in and of himself, but more than anything, him and his crew, they make amazing art products, paints, pigments, mediums, stuff that I just adore. And I have been a big fan of Stuart's stuff for a long time. And because of that, we email back and forth every once in a while. And I've mentioned several times that if he ever has anything that he wants, tested, I'm glad to do it. Well, I got an email inviting me to the beta of the Whitest White compound, which is basically the counterpart to Blackest Black, is just the absolute, whereas Blackest Black sucks in every iota of light that comes near it, these are, without being day glow, the most reflective, shine pigments that there are based off the color white. And there are 3 versions of it in the beta. There is the beta 1. Like even then, that bottle is crazy white, and that's a clear bottle. Like, that's actually the what you're seeing is the paint itself. It matches like the white of the lid is how white the paint is. Like, that's insane. And that's the first batch. And then he has the beta 2. Again, from the outside, I don't see a difference. I won't know a difference, and there's a beta 3 as well. I won't know the difference until I get a chance to actually get it on a model and start messing around, or maybe get some on a canvas or something like that to, create, use that for highlighting and the like, to see what it comes up as. But Stuart sent me this big questionnaire and everything about, after I use it, fill it out, and so I'm excited. Benefits of being a professional nerd and a professional hobbyist is you can reach out to different companies and see if they have stuff that you want to review, or in this case, beta test. So I'm excited. I'm gonna probably sometime this weekend I'll figure out something over there in the Hobbyland that needs some white on it, and I'll give it a go and see how white these are, without using it as a primer or anything like that. Just literally just testing it out to see how goes the El Blanco Blankest whitest white that there is, and I'll fill out my questionnaire and stuff and get it back to Stuart. Eventually, that will become part of his web store, just so you can buy black is black and pink is pink, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's cool. I'm excited about getting to do that. Excited about the 40K announcements on Saturday. I've heard a few rumors about what things might be, but it's, again, unless it comes from someone that I know has the ear of the company, or someone who I know at the company, I generally keep rumors tamped down, because I don't get my hopes up, or I don't want to roll my eyes so hard that I'm staring at my memories in my frontal lobe. But who knows? There's all kinds of people whispering about things and all kinds of stuff that could happen. Either way, I'm sure I'll talk about it next week, either with great excitement or a proper amount of lamentation. we'll see how that goes. Let's see what else. I think I've been working steady on this week. Haven't done a lot with Spycraft this week, but that was because my crafty bosses kind of told me to take the week off. Not because I did anything wrong. It was just because they are very busy doing their own thing. Crafty Games does a lot of other products, and a few of the things that they are spearheading are coming to a head. And so basically the bosses over there told me, they're like, hey, we know you've got other stuff going on. Focus on that for this week. We'll get back in touch on Monday. So I love working for good people and people who understand what it is to be a freelancer. It would be very easy for them to look at me and say, I know your contract doesn't have a non-disclose or a non-compete about that kind of product, but we want to make sure that you're spending enough time working on our products. They could absolutely do that sort of thing. But they don't, and they're good people, and they understand that as a freelancer, there will be weeks where I'm spending my entire week working on their stuff and nothing on other people. So it all comes out in the wash. Which actually brings me to one of the other companies that I work for, Big Child. I know we're about ready to pop the bubble on a really cool deal. So that'll be cool when that goes through. It'll make me feel better. Make me feel like I'm doing something for the company out here in Cyberland. And then I have one thing. I know I'm getting kind of toward the end of the show. I've got one thing that happened that is work related, that is an awesome thing that I can't wait to tell you more about. But then there was one thing that is, in my opinion, hands down one of the coolest things that's happened this year. And that has more to do with my fandom than anything else, but we'll get to that first. We'll go freelancing first. So if you haven't paid attention, I'm going to put the link to it in the description of the video. But Hell: The Last Saga is a a very, very heavy miniatures board game that is currently at Kickstarter and doing really, really well. The models are breathtaking, and the gameplay seems pretty cool, pretty straightforward. But overall, I backed it. Not even because of like, oh, I know the people. I do know a couple people involved with the game itself, but it's just some of those models, they're so good. Even if I get all of these models and never play the game itself, if I just use these models for like D&D or something, they're awesome. There's one that is probably my favorite unique style called the Wolf Spirit, that it almost looks like it's like a ghost that is wearing a wolf pelt. It's like a wolf-shaped ghost wearing a pelt. Oh, it's so cool. It's so cool. Follow the link. Take a look at it. There's only one backing level that I saw that's basically get the game and the stuff. I know it's a little expensive. I think it comes in like $120. Totally gonna be worth it. It's gonna be amazing. So back the hell out of that. Other thing that happened. So a few weeks back, a former employee of mine, I used to work with a game called Cursed Empires. Its original name was Crimson Empires, but they were reached out to and asked to change the name of their stuff by was it at the time LucasArts, because that was the name of a series of comics, a series of graphic novels. So Crimson Empires became Cursed Empires, and Cursed Empires is a very gritty, like grim-dark, gritty fantasy world. It's got its own game system, but it has totally different, like just a different idea behind the world. There's different cults that everybody follows. It's like it feels a little bit like RuneQuest if RuneQuest got rid of all of the slapstick goofy and dove headfirst into a Lovecraft novel. It's very, very cool. And the second edition of Cursed Empires, I had done a lot of fiction work. I'd done a little bit of design work too, but we were working on it very steadily, me and the designers, and then kind of out of nowhere, it kind of fell off the market. I don't know the circumstance. I don't know the what happened, but it was suddenly very hard to find product. I did not hear from the owners of the company, Spartans Unleashed, for a long time. But we were still friends. Like, we still maintained contact, but never on a professional level did we hear anything. And then a couple of weeks ago, I got an email, or it was like a Facebook message popped up from the owner of Spartans Unleashed, and he was started asking questions about my work schedule, and started asking questions about, what am I, have I been thinking about Cursed Empires? Has it come back up? That sort of thing, and would I be interested in helping out in making a third edition? Now, obviously, I am, because it was an amazing world. It had a lot of really, really cool stuff, and I had a bunch of really neat ideas that never really kind of came to fruition because we didn't get around to making those books. And hopefully, somewhere around here, I've got to have a copy of those rules lying around that I started to make. So hopefully, some of that writing is still lying around. I can repurpose it and go back and clean it up. But that's not even the cool part about the whole freelancing bit. Is, again, it's another company, another gig. Yeah, more deadlines, more work that I'm going to have into doing, but it's stuff that I love. I loved that world. I loved working for Chris and Spartans Unleashed. And I loved some of the fan responses of what we were doing. We were getting some really cool fan mail back. And so I was very excited about that. And the other day, I was chit-chatting with another freelance writer friend of mine, and she mentioned that she used to play Cursed Empires, and that she was super into it when I mentioned that I was helping out again. And so I passed on her information or contact information to Spartans Unleashed in an effort to hopefully maybe bring her on as part of the stable and get them writing in this world that they obviously enjoy. I've never worked with this person professionally before, but I know they do good work. And so I passed the information up to Chris and was like, hey, if you have a lot of work, feel free to pass some on to this person, and let's share the love and make some really cool stuff. So that's also coming. That's happening in the future now too. Is that an old role-playing game system that I adored is getting a new version with some brand new art that is bueno. Again, it's been a really good week as a freelancer and as a person. And then before we go, I have got to say, and I'm gonna raise my glass again. Little scotch to do you. Just 2 days ago, we were informed that the rumors that I had been hearing, that I had picked up from several of my little eavesdropping sites and whatnot, are true. And that in 2021, HBO Max is going to be releasing the Snyder Cut of Justice League. For those of you who do not know, I am one of the biggest DC Comics fans you'll ever meet. I absolutely adore their stories. I love their movies. I love their TV shows. I am a fanboy. I'm an unapologetic fanboy. I get angry when people make fun of scenes that, in my opinion, they don't understand, about some of these movies. And I get visibly upset when someone's like, that movie's terrible, and they'd have no good reason why. That they're just basically jumping on the review bandwagon because it's the fun thing to do, is shit on other people's awesomeness. And for the last year, give or take, there's been a lot of us that have basically said it'd be really cool if we could see what Zack Snyder really intended as part of Justice League, as his version of Justice League. Because what we got, although an adequate movie, was not the Justice League movie that we should have gotten following something as amazing as Man of Steel and something as hardcore as BVS. We had two epic, powerful movies, dark movies, followed up by a somewhat light and funny Justice League. And that's Joss Whedon, because that's what he does. And so I believe firmly that there was this version of the movie that we needed to see. And while I was not one of those people that was like, pitchforks and torches at Warner Brothers, burn it down, wasn't one of those angry trolls online that was like, they ruin everything all the time. It was obvious to me that Zack did not get his version. He was not, something bad happened in his life. He had to pull out, and Warner did him a disservice. And for something as big as the Justice League movie, the first time that this has happened, they needed to do the right thing by him, and they needed to also they're leaving money on the table, because putting out this other version, it was so obvious that there are tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of fans that want this version of the movie, and they're willing to pay for it. That there were GoFundMes that funded giant charities in the name of the release of the Snyder Cut. At Comic-Con, there are $10,000 billboards that were put up specifically for release the Snyder Cut. These are fans that are like, hey, give us what we want. Over San Diego Comic-Con last year, I think, they hired a plane and one of the sky banners that said release the Snyder Cut to fly over again and again and again. That's how big this got. And there were people out there who were like, the Snyder Cut doesn't exist. Movie studios don't do that. They don't make additional cuts. This is silly. there were people out there that were just naysaying like crazy because they wanted to hate on DC, they wanted to hate on Zack Snyder, they wanted to hate on the Snyderverse as it kind of became known. And as of 2 days ago, not only, because now there were actors, Jason Momoa, Ray Fisher, they said they've seen the rough cut, they watched it with him at Zack's house. They know it existed. It wasn't finished, obviously, because it was finished, that's the movie we would have got. Obviously it's probably, there's a whole lot of green screen that probably never got post-produced. There's probably all kinds of stuff that didn't get finished because Warner pulled the plug. But Zack had this stuff available to him. And the fact that there are people that saw it added fuel to this movement. And eventually, it seems that Warner has realized that maybe, just maybe, the reason why their movie didn't make $1 billion like it should have is because they screwed with it too much. They screwed with his story. It felt funny. It felt disjointed. And now it's time to maybe make some of that back, to get some of that back to us. And so we got the announcement in 2021 through the HBO Max streaming service, and hopefully through like Blu-ray and stuff as well. We're gonna get the Snyder Cut. We're gonna get, they're giving him the ability to finish it, to make it so it fits his vision. I'm assuming he's probably going to make a couple of tweaks here and there to make it fit the fact that there are some other movies. Will we ever get the David Ayer cut of Suicide Squad that matches Zack's cut? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Maybe they'll learn from this and go, yeah, let's do it, money. Who knows? But the fact that they're doing this for us is so huge, and that it has rekindled the strength and the power behind the DCEU, that maybe now, instead of getting a headless Henry Cavill cameo at the end of Shazam, we'll get an actual Superman versus Black Adam in the Black Adam movie. Or we'll get an actual Black Manta cameo in Suicide Squad. Who knows where this could lead us when the studio finally takes that step back and goes, you know what? He does know what he's doing. This is a bigger universe. Let's trust it to these guys instead of changing everything at the last minute. And that is awesome. I've talked way too long, but yeah, so that was the icing on my very cool weekend. My very cool week is the fact that it's legitimately going to happen, which as a fanboy like me, it's just that was the sugary coating on an otherwise amazing freelance cupcake. So I'm super pumped. It's a great week, going into a good weekend. I'm gonna role play a bunch this weekend. We're gonna find out about 40K stuff. I'm gonna play some video games. I'm gonna write some more in the novel. I'm gonna drink some more scotch. It's gonna be amazing. And next week is the last episode that you can do the comment to be part of the contest, the May contest for Tales from a Professional Nerd, which again, all it requires for you to do is to be a subscriber, comment on one of these, either last week's video, this video, or next week's video, with your favorite episode and why of Tales from a Professional Nerd, and give me a reason or a topic to move forward, and the winner's topic will be the one that gets chosen, plus you get a cool little prize package that I'm putting together from stuff here in the studio. So without further ado, let's let you get out on your way. Be wonderful to one another, and enjoy the life that we've been given to be all weird and positive. And as on top of all of that, get out there, smile, enjoy yourself, and play some games. Skull.